have Congressman Lewis here, and he'll just be saying a few words before he starts signing. Yeah, thank you so much.
And Andrew's going to say a few words. I'm not alone. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for being so patient. Now, from reading book 1 and now book 2, some of you may know that I didn't grow up in a big city like Washington, D.C., or New York, or Atlanta, or Buffalo, or Chicago. I grew up in rural Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little place called Troy. My father was a sharecropper, a tenant farmer. But back in 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4. How many of you remember when you were 4? What happened to the rest of us? Good, very good, brother. My father had saved $300, and with the $300, he bought 110 acres of land. My family still own this land today. On this farm there is a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. I won't bore you with the chicken story, but on the farm, it was my responsibility to take care of the chickens. And I fell in love with raising chickens like no one else could. I became very good raising chickens. As a little boy, about 8 or 9 years old, I wanted to be a minister. So from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and my cousins, we would gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard like you gather here. And the chickens, along with my brothers and sisters and cousins, would help make up the audience, the congregation. And I would start speaking or preaching, and when I look back on it, some of the chickens would bow their heads, some of the chickens would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to in the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listened to me today in the Congress. As a matter of fact, some of those chickens was just a little more productive. That's another story, and I won't bore you with the full story. When I was growing up, and we visited the little town of Troy, visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee, visit Birmingham, I saw those signs that said white men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. Sometimes we would go downtown on a Saturday afternoon to the theater, and all of us little black children had to go upstairs to the balcony, and all of the little white children went downstairs to the first floor. Well, come home and ask my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents why. They would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble. But in 1955, 15 years old, in the 10th grade, I heard about Rosa Parks. I heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on our radio. The action of Rosa Parks, the words and leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me to find a way to get in the way. And I went off to school. I got in trouble, what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. And I've been getting in trouble ever since. So March, book 2, bring me to Washington, right? When I was a little boy, well, a little more than a little boy, 21 years old, had all of my hair, a few pounds lighter to go on something called a freedom ride. I had never been to Washington, D.C. before. 13 of us, blacks and white, came here to test a decision of the United States Supreme Court. Just think, in 1961, the same year that President Barack Obama was born, black people and white people could be seated on a bus together, leaving Washington to travel through Virginia, through North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, on our way to New Orleans. And I remember going to a little restaurant, someplace maybe not too far from here, the Chinese restaurant. I growing up in rural Alabama, attended school in Nashville, I never had Chinese food before. And that evening, the meal was so wonderful. It was delicious. And someone said, you should eat well. This may be like the last supper. Some of us boarded a Greyhound bus on May 4th. Some boarded a Trailway bus, traveling through Virginia, through North Carolina. One guy was arrested for trying to get a shoe shine in the so-called white barber shop in Charlotte, North Carolina. In Rock Hill, South Carolina, a few miles from Charlotte, my seatmate, a young white gentleman from Connecticut, the two of us tried to enter a so-called white waiting room. We were attacked by members of the Klan, beaten, and left lying in a pool of blood. Many years later, one of the guys who had beaten me and my seatmate came to my office on February 09 and said, Mr. Lewis, he came with his 40-something son. The man was in his 70s. He said, I'm one of the people that attacked you. I want to apologize. Will you forgive me? The son started crying. He started crying. I said, I accept your apology. I forgive you. I started crying, and the three of us hugged. I saw the gentleman 3 other times. But the Freedom Ride led to the desegregation of public transportation all across the South. This book will also tell you the story of my involvement with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the March on Washington, and I tell you, March 2 for me is drama. It's a lot of drama. When Andrew passed me the very first copy, I think I kissed the book and said, this is too much, Andrew. It's too much. But this young man was born in Atlanta, lived in my district, became a staff person, and he came to me in March in 08, the end of a campaign in 08, and said, Congressman, you should write a comic book. I said, comic book? What are you talking about? And came again. I went and said no. And I finally said yes, if you do it with me. So March 1, March 2 was the result of the conversation, the discussion we had. Because I had been inspired by a little comic book. I think we had a copy of it someplace earlier, called Martin Luther King Jr. and the Montgomery Story. Came out in 1958, and many of us as students, black and white students, high school students, college students, it sold for 10 cents. 14 pages. This little book started me on a path of commitment to the way of peace, the way of love, and the way of nonviolence. And I have not turned back since. I grew to accept nonviolence as a way of life, as a way of living. And Andrew, I want to thank you, my friend, my brother, for suggesting to me that we should write a comic book. And now we are here. Thank you. Andrew Aydin.
Well, sir, you did the hard part. I just had a little idea. I started reading comics probably much like a lot of you guys here when I was pretty young. My father left when I was about 4, and by the time I was 5 I started reading comics because I was attracted to the fact that these were stories that talked about justice for people who wanted a better world for no other reason than that's what they believed in. So it seems almost self-evident that John Lewis should be a character, should have his story told, should be a comic book hero. We didn't always know this would work. I think early on there were some people who thought maybe I was a little crazy, but the congressman believed in it, and that to me meant more than anything. I think the moment we knew it was really coming together came when we got a phone call from a reporter at a conservative newspaper that shall remain nameless. And he said, look, I don't usually do this, but I gave your book to my 9-year-old son. Now he's put on his Sunday suit, he's marching around my house, and calling for everyone. And there were some moments where I overstepped perhaps a little bit. I was too young to know any better, and I was in an elevator with Ethel Kennedy and John Siegenthaler. John Siegenthaler, who you know book 2 is actually dedicated to. He passed away while we were making it. And I said, excuse me, Mr. Siegenthaler, Mrs. Kennedy, I just thought you'd want to know. Y'all are in a comic book that I'm making with Congressman Lewis? And Ethel Kennedy looks up at me and she says, well, That's nice, dear. And so you can understand what it meant then when, a little more than a year later, I got a phone call from Ethel Kennedy saying that March Book 1 was the first graphic novel ever to receive the Robert F. Kennedy Book Award.
Wow.
I guess if there's anything that you take away from this, it's two things. It is one, that if you are young, you have the power to change this world more so than any of us. Us older folks, those of us who have jobs and debt, whether it's student loans or mortgages, young people are the most free among us, and we have to show them the way to change this world. They're the only ones who can save us from ourselves. And two, if there's anything I can add to this, it is that you have to follow your dreams. You have to do what you truly believe in. I am the only person in politics crazy enough to suggest that there should be a comic book written by a congressman or an icon, and lo and behold, it worked. I think you all stand here as testament, and I am grateful to every one of you for supporting this. If there's anything I ask of you, it is that we make sure that every young person in schools, in libraries, gets copies of March so that they can understand the sacrifices of another generation. They need to re-examine our past so that they can change our future. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for believing in this project. Congressman, thank you for walking this road with me. Thank you guys. Let's sign some books.